This is Umar Ahmed for IFL TV, proudly sponsored by Everlast. It's been a long, long while, Bob, since we've been joined on Zoom. How's life treating you?
Really good. I'm in California. Sunshine is out. Weather is beautiful. What can be bad?
Well, it's summer here in London, and it's raining. Been raining all day, so
Yeah.
not as good as the sunny California that you're in. And it's also midnight here, so if I sound a bit tired, excuse me, Bob, but I'll try my best. So, Bob, we haven't spoken since Top Rank did their deal with Sky Sports. So, just want to go through the logistics of the deal. Am I correct in saying that every US and European Top Rank show will be shown live on Sky Sports in the UK, Bob?
Yeah, every U.S., European, Asian, God willing, this pandemic will be behind us, and we can resume doing fights in Asia, will be shown on Sky. So all our great, talented fighters, the UK public will have an opportunity to see in the coming years. It's on Sky.
And how many UK Top Rank shows do you plan to do per year, Bob?
There are no specific number of shows in the UK. It will depend on the attractions and our ability to put together fights in the UK. But this year, we'll have at least one fight in the UK, which will be shown live on Sky. And next year, some real blockbusters. We hope to bring some of our better fighters, champions, over to the UK to test fighters from other countries, including the UK.
I'm guessing that show you're referring to for this year involves Josh Taylor and Jack Cattrall. Where are we with that one, Bob? Is there an update?
Yeah, that fight will be held either late November or early December in Scotland. It will be shown live on Sky. We are busy now securing the venue in Scotland and getting a date agreeable to everybody. Sky, ESPN, and Brad Jacobs will be in Belfast next week. And from Belfast, he will go to Scotland, and we'll be able to announce the fight, because all the details, purses with the fighters, that's all been worked out in advance.
I believe that's the first time we've seen two Brits and an undisputed clash for 4 belts. So it's going to be an historic occasion in Scotland.
Well, since when did a Scot become a Brit?
Scots are Brits, Bob.
No, they're not Brits.
They're not?
They're Scots, right?
Well, they're part of the UK.
Well, they're part of the UK, that's true. For now.
Yeah, true. They're some of them, of course, want the independence. Anyways, yeah. Bob, moving on to the heavyweight scene. Of course, we've seen a delay in Fury Wilder, but October 9th, we expect these two big men to get in the ring and go at it again?
Absolutely. It's all been signed and agreed for October 9th. The same venue has been secured. Most people who bought tickets for the fight on July 24th have kept those tickets. We're looking for a complete sellout on October 9th. And we're very, very excited. It's a great fight. It should be a really interesting fight. And the undercard, the pay-per-view undercard, is special because there'll be 3 heavyweight fights on that card. And so people who love heavyweight boxing will get their fill of it on October 9th.
Yeah, some fantastic heavyweight fights on that card as well, I'll add. Bob, you mentioned the tickets for October 9th. The people who bought it on July 24th will be transferred over to October 9th. I do want to address an issue with that. Obviously, since Tyson had COVID, a lot of people were suggesting that the fight was delayed because of a lack of ticket sales. I spoke to Frank Warren, and he said that you told him that $15 million worth of ticket was sold for that July 24th. So can you clear
15
up that
of the
situation?
19 million, right? We sold. So we were on our way to a sellout anyway. But that's ridiculous. I mean, COVID is COVID, for Christ's sake. And it wasn't just Tyson that came down with COVID, but 9 other people in his camp came down with COVID. So that was, we were faced with that situation. And remember, it's COVID. So it's no funny malarkey. I mean, you got to report to the Nevada Boxing Commission. The doctors give you the tests who are familiar with that. And it's not like saying, hey, I pulled muscle training. Maybe yes, maybe no. But this was no question that they were all full of COVID. The cook, as I said, sparring partners. So we had no other alternative but to postpone the fight. Now, look, the best case with COVID, if you get it, and it's not major life-threatening, might knock you out for a week. But this week that it occurred, we're into the 3 more weeks to go for the fight. And that meant that we would knock out that week, because he certainly couldn't train that week. And we would hope that maybe he could start training the week before the fight. But that's not good, because the week of the fight, you don't really train, you do all the publicity. So Tyson wouldn't have been ready for the fight, and that's why it was postponed. But, it's medical science. It's not just, making up stories. Now, we've heard instances where fights are postponed on flimsy excuses, but COVID ravaging you and your training partners is certainly a serious situation.
What did you say to Tyson about that outbreak in his camp, Bob?
When I evaluated it, I blamed everyone. I blamed my people for not strictly enforcing testing in the gym. I mean, people were coming in without being tested. A sparring partner would bring 2 associates with him. The gym was very crowded, and there were no precautions taken regarding the COVID. I mean, we acted at that point, everybody acted like, hey, the pandemic is over, right? We're into the blue water. But again, the pandemic wasn't over. And COVID came down to bite us in the ass. So I think it's really everybody's fault. We should have been more vigilant, protecting everybody, and Tyson shouldn't have been so laissez-faire, allowing so many people in to watch him train. But believe me, when he comes back to the United States to his final training for the fight, I think he's going to do a month in the UK and then a month in the US in Vegas. We will have strict protocols, almost like we did when we put on fights in the bubble. Nobody's coming in that gym without being tested, and we will sit them outside in the lobby until the test result comes in. Should take 20 minutes now in the fast test, and we'll provide everybody with a safe environment. And it sure as hell wasn't safe before.
As you said, he's back in the UK now. Before he came back to the UK, there was some photos circulating around social media of him in the MGM hotel, I believe. Could you just address that for us, please, Bob? What was the situation with COVID there whilst those photos were going around?
This was when he experienced, because I went over to visit him in his house. He has a house here in Vegas. I talked with him, and he was having trouble with congestions of the lungs. But he's a big, strong guy. And by the end of the week, these symptoms had passed, and he had tested negative. So rather than stay in quarantine, he busted out, and he's a people person, and he appeared in public. Was that the wisest thing to do? I don't know. 2 days later, he left for home. So again, I saw with my own eyes the discomfort he was feeling from the COVID a day after he had been diagnosed with the virus.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the fight, Bob. So how do you expect this to perform on ESPN pay-per-view and Fox pay-per-view, October 9th?
I think better than the second fight, which was on pay-per-view. And the reason I say that is Tyson has become huge in the United States. People of all ethnic groups really get a kick out of him. And he's a lot better known now than when we did the second fight. And we did like 850,000 pay-per-view buys in the second fight. And I really believe we're going to go well over 1 million on this fight.
Okay. Wilder's put out a statement recently saying this fight is going to be easy for him. What do you think about that? And what's your prediction come October 9th, Bob?
First of all, you don't take anything that Wilder says at face value. I mean, Wilder as a boxer is equivalent to Eddie Hearn as a promoter. They just talk for the sake of talking. So I don't pay attention to anything Wilder says, same with whatever Eddie Hearn says. So I really believe that Wilder, let's be honest about it, is not as good a fighter, not technically near as good as Tyson Fury. But the problem with Wilder, he's like the little guy, he's not little, but it's like a little guy comes into a bar where there's big bruises at the bar, tough guys, and he insults one of them, and it looks like it isn't a fair fight, but he has a gun in his pocket, and he uses the pistol to damning effect. And that's Wilder. Wilder is not one of our great heavyweight technicians of all time. He's not really a particularly good boxer, but he has that weapon in his punch that is devastating, and that makes him a live fighter in any fight that he's in.
Absolutely. I think everyone watching can agree with that. Bob, it wouldn't be right of me to speak to you and not ask about some certain things that have been put out about the collapse of Fury Joshua. Shelley Finkel made some comments recently saying he was shocked by Fury's team that they made no effort to negotiate a walkaway deal. Did you see Shelley's comments, Bob?
I mean, I don't know what Shelley's talking about. Frank talks to Shelley all the time, Frank Warren. I don't talk to Shelley because I have no use for him, truthfully. But Frank talks to him all the time. And I asked Frank, once the arbitrator's decision came down, I said, Frank, see if they'll take a walk away, step aside.
Yeah.
And Frank came back and he said, I've talked to Shelley, and Shelley says, don't even mention it. We want the fight. We don't want any step aside money. I mean, that, again, what are we supposed to do? They tell us, don't even mention step aside money. We want the fight. Okay. So we finalized the fight.
Okay. And also, Eddie has made some comments since that situation. He did say that Top Rank had the ability to terminate the agreement for the third fight between Fury and Wilder. Is there any truth in that?
Can't believe anything Eddie says. Has he seen the contracts? I mean, how does he have the nerve to say anything like that? Well, obviously, if we could terminate it, we wouldn't have gone to arbitration, and we wouldn't have been subject to the arbitrator's ruling that he had to fight Wilder. And I know for a fact that if the Saudi deal had been finalized by the time the arbitrator ruled, he might have given Wilder damages, but he wouldn't have enjoyed that fight. The problem was Eddie Hearn. Believe me, Hearn overreached the situation, not necessarily for himself, but as a negotiator. He convinced the Saudis that they were better off buying all of the rights rather than just the site rights. That was stupid, because if the Saudis were going to buy the television rights, they had to examine them quite correctly. The contracts that Top Rank had with ESPN, that Joshua had with Sky, that Frank had with BT, and so forth. And that was the normal due diligence, but that was a delay. They weren't familiar, and their attorneys in London were not familiar with the television business, with the boxing business. And they were bright and they were able, but it takes time. And that just delayed. So by the time the arbitrator had to make his ruling, he knew we had no deal for the Joshua fight in the Saudi Arabia. And that's the long and short of it. Now, that's not because Eddie did something wrong purposely. Not claiming that. That's stupid. Eddie made a mistake. And by going ahead and trying to sell all the rights to the Saudis, that was something that was going to take ages to accomplish, because the Saudis may have all the money in the world, but they're not fools, and they had to know what they were buying.
Okay, I appreciate you clearing that one up. And aside from that, of course, Frank Warren and yourselves have gone on record many times saying the arbitration point was on paper, essentially put to Eddie Hearn.
Absolutely. We're not crazy. When we signed the initial deal, Fury and Joshua, and subject to finding a site, we put in there about the arbitration and so forth. I mean, the idea that we concealed it is ludicrous, because, first of all, the media had reported it, but it was in the contract, because we have, lawyers who have a great ability, and they're real good attorneys, and they would insist, and they did insist, that it be put in the contract, so the other side couldn't say, hey, you misled us.
But he claims that he was told 100% this arbitration case wouldn't be an issue. Did you ever say that to him?
No, not 100%. We thought that going in, we would we were the favorites to win the case.
Mm.
We believed that to be the case. Now, let me give you an analogy for baseball, which you know nothing about.
I have no idea about it.
Okay. Well, in baseball, there's a pitcher, and he throws the ball, and if it's a zone over the plate, hits through that zone, and the batter doesn't swing at it or just holds his bat. And then the umpire says, ball or strike. So now the pitcher pitches and it's a strike. But the umpire sees it differently and he calls it a ball. What is the pitch? It's a ball because the umpire called it a ball. So as confident as we were going into the arbitration, there was always a chance that we could lose the arbitration. We didn't believe we should lose it. We didn't believe the facts demonstrated that we could lose it, but we lost it. But so that possibility always is there. How can Eddie say we assured him 100%? What was the other side doing? Spending millions of dollars in litigation because they had no chance? No, they believed they had a chance. You see, that's why Eddie, it can't be believed anything the man says because he doesn't think before he talks. Is he a good guy? Yeah, he's a good guy. I like Eddie. I get a kick out of Eddie. I go back years with his father, who was a great mate of mine. We did some events years ago. Terrific, terrific guy. But Eddie has to learn to hold his tongue and think things out before he talks. And he doesn't. And that's why a lot of things he says are not correct, not because he's an evil person, but because he doesn't think before he talks.
Okay, anyways, moving forward, if Fury and Joshua get wins in September and October respectively, which is no easy task, but if they do you think this is a fairly smooth fight to make for, let's say, February, March next year?
Absolutely, February, March, or April next year. But I really do. I believe that to be the case. I know my guy, Tyson Fury, wants the fight. From based on what I've read, because I've never really met him, I believe Anthony Joshua wants the fight. So absolutely, it's the fight that should be had, that everybody wants to see. So yeah, I certainly believe that fight will take place, and it'll take place in the first quarter or so of next year.
Now, you made some comments recently saying we could take this to the UK. Eddie has put a statement out on IFL. I'll just read you the quote. Do you honestly think Bob would do it in the UK for half the money? Never heard so much bollocks. They want to talk about that fight to help build Fury Wilder, which is as flat as a pancake. That's what he said.
What does a fight with Fury Wilder have to do with what I'm saying about wanting to do Fury and Joshua? Again, in the UK. Again, that's a man who's talking without thinking. Now, what I'm saying is I would love to do Joshua and Fury where it belongs in the UK. It is the biggest fight ever in the UK. Certainly the biggest heavyweight fight, biggest fight ever. You have great arenas in the UK. Do in April, sun's out, it's beautiful. And the fight would do a tremendous amount of money. Would it do the same money as a crazy site fee from Saudi Arabia? Probably not. But that isn't the point. We in boxing have an obligation to the fans. We have an obligation to a whole nation, which has really been one of the best backers of boxing in the world. And those are the UK people.
Mm.
I mean, the pay-per-view numbers, the numbers at gates, that we should all be talking about how we can make it work in the UK. There are other aspects other than ticket sales. What about a big company sponsoring the whole event and getting behind it and getting all the credit for keeping it in the UK? There's a lot of ways it can make it happen. But if you throw up your hands and say, hey, it's so much more money in Saudi Arabia or Qatar than there is in the UK, and so forget about it, then you're not going to accomplish it. I think we in boxing have every obligation to make the fight happen in the UK.
Why do you think he's suggesting that you don't care about the UK fans? Where's that come from?
I don't care about what?
He's suggesting that you don't care about the UK fans.
He's talking before he's thinking. What that I've said means that I don't care about the UK fans. That's a non sequitur. If I say the fight should be in the UK because UK, and he says, Arum doesn't care about the UK fans, that's a non sequitur. That means, I mean, where does that statement have to do anything with what I'm saying that the fight should be in the UK? I mean, again, I know, and I've now analyzed people who talk without thinking. We had a guy who was president of the United States for 4 years, and that was his big vice, other than others that he had. That's a problem with Eddie Hearn. He talks before he thinks. It makes no sense that I'm saying, let's do everything we can to make the fight happen in the UK. And he says, Bob Arum shows he doesn't care about the UK fans. What is one have? I mean, what is he talking about?
Anyways, a fight that does make sense, certainly makes sense, is Terence Crawford v. Sean Porter. Obviously, the WBO ordered that. I believe we've got till August 20th to reach a deal, Bob?
Yes, we're working very hard behind the scenes with Porter, with PBC, with everybody to make that fight happen. And if it happens, it'll happen in November. And I really believe that there is a great opportunity for the fight to happen.
Okay, so I take it at the moment things are going well with TGB and PBC to make that.
Well, again, we're discussing it. We're discussing it with Terence. We're discussing it with Sean Porter. I think everybody feels that, hey, this is a pretty good fight. This will generate good money. Let's do the fight. So where there's a will, there's a way.
Absolutely. And of course, things with Teofimo Lopez look much better. Obviously, his situation with Top Rank. So will there be a resolution to the fight with Kambosos Jr.?
Yeah, I think all documents have been filed with the IBF. Lopez, supported by us, have said, hey, Kambosos, you want to do the fight? Triller, you won the bid. Do it in September, because you go past September, your time limit is expired. Do it in the United States, and let's get it on. If not, you forfeit your deposit. And then I guess Eddie Hearn and DAZN would have the opportunity to do the fight. They were the second biggest bidder. And if they don't do it, then we're holding a date in September to do that fight. Now, Triller, on the other hand, says, no, we want to do the fight the end of October in Australia. Well, God damn it, you can't get into Australia. I mean, give me a break. I said at first, no, it's not fair. It's 14 days quarantine. He's going over the train. I mean, 14 days quarantine. He can't train. He can't do anything. I mean, it's crazy. You can't do a fight that way. And so he says uh, to me, there's no quarantine. And he's right. There's no quarantine because there's an absolute ban that you can't, if you're not Australian or New Zealand, you can't get into Australia. So, the fight can't happen. The guy they're playing, they made a stupid bid that far priced the fight way more than it was worth. Crazy bid. I mean, Hearn's bid and Top Rank's bid together wasn't as much as they bid, so it's just nuts. But in any event, hopefully we'll get the resolution early next week from the IBF.
If you get that fight, Bob, where are you looking to put that? Is that an East Coast or West Coast fight?
I don't think it's a problem. I think probably we would do it in in Vegas, but maybe in New York, depending on the dates. But again, we want to first secure that fight, and then it'll probably be either in New York or in Las Vegas.
And if Lopez comes through that fight, how likely is it that we see Lopez Lomachenko too?
I think very likely, but I think because of the Lopez's wife is having a baby, so I don't think he's going to be prepared to fight in December. See, we have a date of December 11th, which coincides with the Heisman Trophy for the best college football player, which gets a lot of big audience, and we then segue into the fights. So Lomachenko will probably fight somebody else in December, and then in the first quarter, I'd like to make Lomachenko Lopez.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good to us. Just a couple of quick things, Bob, please. So Jamal Herring v Shaquar Stevenson, an absolutely brilliant fight. Do we expect that to take place end of this year?
I think before the end of this year, probably in September.
Okay.
Sometime in December or the first, so probably in October, one of the dates that we're holding in October for it. We hope by the middle of next week we get that fight finalized.
Okay, top stuff. And lastly, Nico Ali Walsh. Just talk to me about that signing and the pressure on his shoulders being Muhammad Ali's grandson.
Well, he's Muhammad Ali's grandson, so he probably doesn't feel any pressure. Ali never felt any pressure. So, for me, it's like almost like a joke kind of dream, promoting Muhammad Ali, the first fighter that I ever met, and first fighter I promoted, and so many years later, promoting his grandson. That's crazy. That is, for me, nuts, And I knew his mother. I know his mother for years, Rashida. She's a lovely lady. They live in Las Vegas. The kid is going to school in Las Vegas, and he's a very good student. He's in university here now in Las Vegas. They say, my people say, my matchmakers, Sugar Hill, who trains him, that he's pretty good, and we'll have to see. Who knows? One step at a time. If they don't have big amateur backgrounds, it's tough for them to develop. But we'll see what we see. April 14th, you'll be April 15th, your time. You'll watch it in the UK and on Sky.
That's the one, live on Sky Sports. Well, listen, big thanks to Evan Korn, your guy, for setting this up. Bob, appreciate your time on IFL TV, as always.
My pleasure. Have a good weekend.
You too, Bob, and hopefully we'll speak soon. Take care.
Thank you.